Hello and welcome to episode 138 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. I'm your host, Devon Dundee. Sigmund is out this week, so I have the pleasure of being joined by Jonathan Reed. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Devon. Great to be here. I'm battling a tiny little bit of man flu here, so I may sound slightly bunged up or a little bit huskier than usual, but other than that, I'm all good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I think the voice works, so we're going to stick with it, but always a pleasure to have you on. We've got a lot to talk about this week. We're going to talk about our new Apple device impressions. We're going to have a mid-season check-in on everyone's favorite slow horses. Very excited to hear your perspective on that. But we're going to start with a preview of this week's highlight, the debut of Spanish-language medical drama Midnight Family. Mara Gabi is a medical student by day, and by night she saves lives with her family in Mexico City's high-stake business of private ambulances. As pressure from both worlds threatens to drag her down, Mara Gabi will do whatever it takes to stay afloat.
¿Le damos pena adaptada o qué?
¿Cómo te fue en el examen, mija?
Más o menos, papá.
Disponible. Cambio. ¡Vámonos!
¿Sabes que en la Ciudad de México el gobierno tiene poco más de 100 ambulancias para atender a una población que ronda los 10 millones de habitantes? Pues es justo ahí donde entramos nosotros. No te quedas aquí, ¿eh? ¿Y qué voy a hacer todo este rato? Pues la tarea.
This one comes to us from showrunner and director Natalia Beristain, created for television by Julio Rojas and Gibran Portega, stars Joaquin Cosio, Renata Vaca, Diego Calva, Sergio Batista, and others. Now, Jonathan, this is actually based on a documentary that I haven't seen, but when we were planning the show, you said you have checked it out. You want to tell us a little bit about that documentary?
Yeah, it's based on a documentary from 2019 of the same name, Midnight Family. And I actually saw this film premiere at the London Film Festival in 2019, and I really liked it. And I think I would recommend, regardless of whether you watch this series or not, I think definitely check this film out because it's really fantastic. At the beginning of this show, we do get a little. It's during the first episode, one of the characters mentions that in Mexico City alone, there are only 100 public ambulances to go amongst 10 million people. And I re-looked up the original documentary, and in the original documentary in 2019, there was 45 ambulances for 9 million people. So things have, should we say, progressed, I guess, slightly. But you get the idea. This is a pretty grim situation in terms of ambulances in Mexico City. So it is executive produced by Luke Lawrenston, who did the original film. But I suspect that's potentially just a credit for originally being the inspiration for this. I don't think he's involved in any writing or anything like that. And in the original film, we're going to talk about the series in a second, but in the original film, it's centered on a family made up of a father and two sons, one of them being a lot younger. And so this series is slightly different in that it adds another person into the family in the form of Maragabi Tamayo, I think her name is. So they've added a few modifications, but there's definitely some inspiration in there, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, I think it's cool that this story's coming to us. I always like to note when the things that we see, especially on Apple TV Plus, because that's what we cover here, are based on true stories. This is kind of another layer removed. It's based on a documentary that's based on a true story, obviously. So there's definitely elements here of real world experiences that people are going through, but they're dramatizing it obviously to get us to connect with the characters and the family as well. To me, what really stuck out about this first episode of Midnight Family was just the tone and the pacing and how it reflects the chaos of Mara Gabi's life from the very start. Even just the very first scene where she's running in and she's like covered in blood and you don't really know what's going on, the context for why she is in the situation that she's in, and then you realize, okay, she's been working and she's trying to get in for a test in med school. That's really where we start to see just the situation that she's in and how, I guess, like spread thin she really is. Because in medical school, she's doing well. She knows her stuff because she's already got all this hands-on experience, but she's failing because she's missing all of her classes because she's working, and they think she's partying every night. It's really just kind of a funny setup, but it just shows the chaos, I think, of what she's going through. And then you get to see a little bit of her family's work where they're racing other ambulances through Mexico City to various emergencies to keep their bills paid. I think that's another really interesting element here. So you've not only got this city that's not being serviced exclusively by public ambulances, but then you've got the private ambulances that are incentivized money-wise to race each other to these emergencies. And you actually see them doing that. And then it's like, okay, so you're trying to help people, but at the same time, you're also putting yourselves and others at risk by racing other private ambulances through the city. And it's a really interesting element. Then we also get a little bit into Mari Gabi's romantic life. She's got this secret relationship with a doctor that she's met through her work as a paramedic, which we see a little bit in the trailer and get a little bit of in this first episode. So she's just got a really hectic life, I would say. And so this first episode, I would consider a crash course, not only in her life, but in her family's situation and just the state of medical care in her community. We get a lot of information in this first episode, and it's just coming at you really fast.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I really enjoyed the first episode. I think that the inclusion of Maragabi's character certainly gives it a bit of diversity anyway, because it was just all guys in the documentary, and I like the idea of her wanting to better her sort of career and been going to medical school, and the sort of the conflict that she has with not being able to practice medicine while she's learning medicine, so she's having to keep that fact a secret. And the idea of this whole ambulance situation in Mexico City and there only being 100 ambulances for the whole city is, as someone who comes, I don't know how it felt, how it leveled with you, Devon, but coming from the UK where we have the NHS and something where I know that if I hurt myself, I'm going to be able to get to a hospital now. Obviously, the NHS is slightly imperfect, and I'm not going to get into a sort of political decision on that. There are certainly ways in which the NHS needs to be improved, but we still have that reliability in the UK, which is, just astonishingly good to have. But obviously, with yourself in America, and then these people in Mexico City, it is a real battle to just get the right medical care. So a lot of it is very shocking to me. I wonder if that was maybe slightly lesser for you, if you're sort of used to maybe having to sort of battle the healthcare system in America, whether you sort of empathized with a few sort of elements of it.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably a scale of access, maybe, and we're somewhere in the middle where getting an ambulance isn't necessarily a struggle here, but a lot of them are privatized here, and so the financial side of things, where that's always a consideration, is definitely a part of it. We see in this first episode where they're tending to people's care, but at the same time, there's also the son who's constantly kind of badgering the patients about setting up payment, and they've got to make a living. But I feel like that's the part that resonated with me most, was just the financial considerations of calling an ambulance. That's very much a part of life here, even though access, I would say, is probably better here than in a lot of places. So yeah, it definitely resonated with me in that sense. It's jarring to see how much the money plays into it, but again, this is this family's income. This is how they make their money. So there's kind of that balance there between helping people, but also trying to keep their bills paid.
Yeah, and also a lot of the people that they help just can't afford the money that they want to charge them. So it's a very difficult situation to be in. I guess we should talk about the family dynamics. I think overall I think my favorite parts of the show were when they're in the ambulance together, and they have a good relationship. They're always bantering. They're winding each other up. There's several plot lines, which in the documentary, it's very much sort of over the course of a few nights. I think it's a few nights, or maybe one night, I can't remember. So you don't quite get into the full background of a family. But here, obviously, we've got Maragabi's got her education that she's doing, plus this affair that she's having with the doctor. Then her brother Marcus has a girlfriend who is wanting to move to America with him. Then there's the youngest brother. So he's having problems with school, maybe sort of skipping school. He's missing his mother, who sort of ran out on them a few years ago. And then Ramon, who is the father, he's battling some potential heart issues while keeping it a secret. So there's a lot going on here. I think for me, there were sort of mixed results with the plot lines. I found Ramon and Julio's plot lines, the youngest brother. I found their plot lines very good. The performances are all really good, but those are the most particular plot lines that I like. The ones with Maragabi, I liked her battling, or juggling the education side. The affair with the doctor just sort of was stepping into like bit melodramatic, sort of kind of soapy areas, which, having seen the documentary, I don't know, like I was very skeptical going into this show, I must admit, but I did like it. I don't know, it just feels a bit kind of cheesy. She's having a secret relationship with a doctor. It's like, I don't know, when there's so many other parts of the show that feel very real and very, hit home quite heavily. Felt very cheesy. And also Marcus's storyline with his girlfriend, where that she wants to go to America. He's not going to go to America. Like, he's one of the main cast. So I feel that like plot lines like that kind of, I don't know, I'm not so much interested in. So, but overall, I think the show was really good. What were your views on the family dynamic?
Oh, I love seeing them in the back of the ambulance, just kind of goofing off and making clips at each other as they're on their way to an emergency. I thought that was a really cool contrast. I think the theme, at least that I'm picking up in this first episode, is just the tension between the family business, the needs of paying their bills, but then they also all have these concerns outside of the family that are pulling them in different directions. And so you kind of just have this contrast where we don't totally know where each of them are going to end up. And, Marigabi's not supposed to be working as a paramedic while she's in med school, which is obviously going to be an issue later on. I loved the scene between Ramon and Julio. I think that relationship's super touching. Everything that Julio does, just I just love it. Seeing this entire situation through the younger child's eyes, I think is really cool. And there's a maturity there. I feel like in some ways he's the only one who really has a grasp on anything. And because he just really seems to understand what's going on and kind of calls other people out. But then at the same time, he's not even supposed to be there. So he has to hide when other people come around the ambulance, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. Good performance by is Sergio Bautista, is the young actor playing him. Very good. I think that it's certainly the little... The cheeky kids, I think sometimes they can come off as annoying, but he does a good balancing job of sort of balancing the cheekiness, but also I think the very complicated feelings that he's having regarding feeling abandoned by his mother, and also struggling with being up all night, and almost like keeping the rest of his family together as well. So really good performance, and I really like that character a lot.
I will say, I think the show's beautifully shot. At one point, I paused the episode and then came back and restarted it, and it was this sweeping shot of Mexico City, and I thought I had accidentally triggered Apple's aerial screensavers, and that's a huge compliment in my eyes, to mix up a TV show with one of those. It really is well done, and the action sequences with the ambulance racing through the city, I thought those were really well done as well. There's a moment towards the end of the episode where the stakes get raised in a very real way, and we see the real reason why Maragabi and her family are doing what they do. They're really out literally saving lives. That turn that the episode took, I felt like it went from kind of lighthearted and funny, like this family almost comedy, to no, this really is a medical drama. We're really going to get into the weeds of the tough aspects of the work that they're doing as well, which I appreciate. And I think it really offered both sides of that coin and really hooked me by the end of that first episode.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the last scene where they're attending a huge fire, and there's obviously lots of potential patients and injuries and so forth. And it's brilliantly well done. And I think that's also, partly my issue with it is that some of the soapy aspects of it can seem a little bit jarring when you then transition into a scene like that, or the scenes where they're rushing across the city, which are really well done. And it doesn't, I mean, it's not necessarily like ruin the show at all. I don't think it does. I think that getting the balance right is sometimes they maybe struggle a little bit with it. I still think overall the show is really good, but it'll be interesting to see going forward what happens with the balancing that very serious side of what they do as a career and as a job versus the slightly soapier sides of the relationships and so forth. I did read that I think episode 3 deals with the 2017 earthquake, I think. So it'll be interesting to see that sort of real life disaster play out and how that works. So I think I'm definitely going to keep watching it. For sure. I wasn't planning to watch it originally because I loved the film so much, and I thought maybe it was a bit unnecessary to do the TV series. But I've been really pleased with it. Actually, I thought it was an enjoyable first episode, and I'm gonna keep watching it.
Awesome. Well, if you want to check out Midnight Family, the first 2 episodes are now streaming on Apple TV Plus with new episodes every Wednesday. Well, Jonathan, just this past week we had new Apple hardware being delivered into people's hands. You and I both got our hands on some new gadgets, so I thought we'd take a minute to share what we got and how we're enjoying it so far. So let's start with the iPhone. Of course, we had the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro line come out last week. Did you end up upgrading your phone?
I did, yes. I'm on the upgrade program, so I do it every year. I got the regular Pro size in black, 128 gigabytes. I don't ever find I need more than that. I'll be honest, not the most exciting of upgrades. There's a few little bits in there which are good. Like, it's good that the ultra wide camera lens has been the ultra wide camera has been improved considerably, which is really good to see. The camera control on the side, I don't know how. I'll be interested to know your thoughts on this. I haven't really used it much because I tend to sort of switch to the camera from the lock screen, but by swiping left. And I would really like the camera to be able to, just with like a simple gesture, like a double tap, be able to switch between a regular photo and a raw photo, because that's generally how I shoot. I'll shoot the quick stuff that I quickly need to do, or if I'm thinking, oh, that's a really special picture, I'll switch to raw and then bring it into Lightroom on my computer later on. So I would love to be able to switch between that. It doesn't seem to be a way to do that really quickly with the camera control. So I'd like to be able to see that added in. But I'm sure for some people it's very handy. How about yourself?
I got the Pro Max, so I'm on the bigger end. And to me, the thing I've noticed actually, which you wouldn't expect, but the increase in the screen size and the slight bump in the phone size, I actually do notice. And it almost, I think they've hit the line there with the size of the Pro Max as far as how big they can go. Yeah. And I'm like,
too big for me.
This is a really big phone.
How does it fit in your skinny jeans that you always wear? Like, how is that?
Well, I'm a back pocket phone person, so it's always in my back pocket. And then when I sit down, I have to figure something out with it. But yeah, it wouldn't go in the front pockets. That would not be comfortable.
No, that's for sure. Yeah. One thing I noticed actually, and this is purely anecdotal for me, I've noticed the battery has been really good so I've been running the 18.1 beta on the 15 Pro before I upgraded, and the battery level was atrocious some days. I was really struggling to get through a day, and the first and second days of having it, I looked sort of early evening, maybe sort of 6 o'clock-ish, and I was on around 50%, which was noticeably different. And this is a pure guess, but I wonder whether there's something in the new chip with the AI Apple Intelligence, whether it's being more efficient with the battery use. I'm absolutely no proof on that or no evidence, but I wonder if there is, because I mean something changed, so I don't know what it is, but that's been really good to have, because I was really struggling with that battery level towards the end of the 15 Pro a few months ago.
Yeah, the battery on these has been awesome. I think it also helps that they run less hot, or they seem to. I haven't noticed heat with mine, and I think that helps out with the battery quite a bit. I think Apple put quite a bit of work into getting that efficiency and the heat dissipation to a good place for the batteries this year.
True.
I have not formed any sort of muscle memory with camera control yet.
No.
It's still early days. I hope I will, because I really think that having instant access that way will be faster for me than swiping on the lock screen. And so I'm really excited about the prospect of the camera control, but I just haven't been out shooting enough photos and kind of forcing myself to use it so I could form that muscle memory after years and years of not having it.
Yeah, true.
Figuring out how to use it, I've struggled a little bit with the half presses and the sliding, and I think it's just one of those things. As you use it, you'll get used to it and figure out exactly how you want to use it. I did figure out how to set it to, I don't want like smooth zooming between the lenses. I only want to use the full lenses, the 1x, 2x, and you can actually change that to where it jumps between lenses instead of zooming, and then you can go into your settings and preserve that. So I've got it to where it defaults to that now, which I appreciate. So I can quickly open the camera, get to the exact lens that I want, and snap. I think that's going to be handy. I've just got to practice it. I think that's the thing.
Oh, so there's a setting that you can do that when you slide backwards and forwards between the lenses, it jumps rather than sort of zooms, scrolls in and out between each one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so when you go into where you can change what the camera control does, one of the options is cameras, and that will change it. Instead of zoom, it'll jump between just those different levels.
Oh.
And then in the settings app, you can go to preserve settings and enable that to lock there, so it won't keep going back to zoom over and over.
Ah, good. Okay, that's good. I'm going to look into that, because that was a slightly annoyance. Really, I do the same as you. I switch between the lenses. I don't zoom in and out, because, for me, it's just not. It's just digital zoom, really. If you're in between, really. So
yeah, I can crop later if I really want to. So that's been great. I think I just got to keep using it. I think it's one of those things. We've never had it before on the iPhone, and it does fit really well with the way I shoot video and things like that, but I've just got to get myself trained on it, and I think eventually I will. So very early days for camera control, but I think it's going to be good in the long run. Have you shot any spatial photos with your 16 Pro yet?
No, I haven't. I mean, I don't have a Vision Pro, and I don't anticipate getting one in the near future. I guess I should future-proof some of my pictures and do that, but the lower quality is maybe putting me off a little bit. I haven't tried any of the videos with the new audio mix either. Just not really interesting to me. I'm hoping it's interesting to some people. I saw a video about the audio mix on The Verge, and to be honest, I wasn't really impressed by that. And I also think that if you're shooting professionally, wouldn't you use mics? I feel that you're always going to get better audio mix that way, it would seem. But I mean, I'm sure that some people will find it of use, and I look forward to seeing people trying that out. But not really for me. And yeah, I hope they iterate on it and keep improving it. But it's at the moment, it's not for me. How about you?
I am very interested in audio mix. I haven't had an opportunity to use it yet, but in my work, I do shoot quite a bit of video with my phone, just because it's the best video camera that I have access to. And we do have lapel mics, but they're not the best, and they show up in the shot. And it would be cool to be able to do some of that on the camera itself. So I think what I'm going to do the next time I shoot a video is shoot it both ways, have the mic with the audio recorder, but also get that audio on the camera and then compare them and see if they're somewhat comparable and if it's something that would work for my use case. Because that demo from The Verge, I was actually pretty impressed with it. Having tried a lot of different ways of cleaning up audio in the past, I'm not a professional by any means. I'm just someone who kind of gets with the plugins and messes with stuff. Having one-click ability to get those effects and get them pretty close to, actually probably better than what I could do on my own.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. Now, any effect like that, it's not magic, right? There's going to be some distortion of the voice, which is, you definitely hear that in the Verge's video, especially if you're like me, who's listened to hours and hours of Nilai's voice.
Yes.
You kind of know what to expect when he speaks. And then I felt like in that demo, at least, after a few minutes, I didn't notice the compression anymore, and it just sounded like he was speaking. So yeah, I'm going to be curious. I'm definitely going to be trying this out in my own use cases. Again, I'm not a professional videographer by any means. You know, I feel like there's a space between that just general person who's just shooting home videos and the super professional videography that where this could be useful. And that's kind of the space that I fit into. I'm going to be trying it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. And yeah, looking forward to hearing you report back on that.
As far as spatial photos, I haven't shot any yet. I was really happy to see that it's coming to the iPhone 15 Pro as well in iOS 18.1. It's in the beta. They didn't mention that in the keynote. So if you've got an iPhone 15 Pro and you're not planning to upgrade, you'll still get the ability to shoot spatial photos before too long, which I think is awesome. I'm interested to compare spatial photos taken on the phone versus converted ones with Vision OS 2, which I raved about in my Vision OS 2 review. I love that process, and I think it really is well done. So I'm interested to see the difference in depth there, and if it's noticeable, or if that conversion is so good that, you know, it's not really a concern about shooting spatial photos straight out of the camera because you can always convert them later. So I'm interested to see how those compare.
Yeah, sure. Especially if you're converting later on, then you're probably using higher quality pictures, because I imagine the spatial photos are probably the lower res ones or lower resolution images in the same way that the spatial videos are. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that works out.
But overall, I'm happy with the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It was a year-over-year upgrade for me as well, so the big difference is the screen and the camera control. But I would say it's a good upgrade if that's something that you're interested in. And I always have to comment about the colors too. I think the black is great. It's darker than last year, which I appreciate, and I'll take the darkest black that Apple will give me.
Yeah, I've ordered my D brand decal for the back of my iPhone, which is a matte black, just as MKBHD would intended. I always get that also because it makes it feel less slippy in my hands as well. So that's always an advantage. I do, yes, it's nice that it's the rails on the side I've noticed are noticeably darker, which I really like. But yeah, no colors really. Fine for me because I prefer black, but I'm sure it would be great to see colors at some point. But at the moment, I feel like we're just sort of shouting into the void about that.
And shout we will.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Apple Watch, because that was the upgrade for me this year. That was actually super exciting. I was coming from a Series 7, so this was a pretty big jump for me. And I was especially excited about it after reading your watchOS 11 review on Mac Stories, which was excellent. Lots of really great tips in there. And
Thank you.
Just amazing coverage of the update. It's really incredible just how capable the Apple Watch is now, what it can do, and how far it's come since watchOS 1 way back 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think watchOS 11 this year is the sort of the low-key success story out of across all Apple's platforms, and I think mainly that's due to the sort of the overhanging sort of shadow of Apple Intelligence coming down the line, because the Apple Watch doesn't have any Apple Intelligence feature and isn't planning to, other than the summarized notifications, which are actually just mirrored from the iPhone itself. And Apple just seems to really like pushing the boundaries of the health features and the fitness features on the iPhone. And actually with this upgrade and last year's upgrade, they're iterating on the system as well, with the addition of the Smart Stack and the way they've enhanced that this year. And the health features like Vitals and Training Load. They're really good additions. I hope they keep iterating on them, because if you read my review, there's certainly some things that need working on, but they're definitely very solid starts, and I've been very impressed with them. Overall, I think watchOS is just a very solid upgrade. I wonder whether we should talk about the watch faces incident, which has actually sort of seems to have emerged this week, it seems. And I only heard about it yesterday. I was listening to Upgrade, and Jason Snell was mentioning about how on the new Series 10 watches, watch itself has the ability to display the second hand or the seconds changing every second because the refresh rate has been made more efficient, energy efficient. But it turns out that only 3 watch faces support this, which are the 3 new watch faces from this year, I believe. And this means that things like the California watch face, the Chronograph Pro, these other watch faces that have seconds and are really, designed in the sort of old school watch style, don't support this and won't share the second hand. And look, this is not like a deal breaker for not getting an Apple Watch. The Apple Watches still work great, but it's just one of these unfortunate incidences where it's just emblematic of a larger problem with the watch faces on Apple OS that just don't seem to be really going anywhere. They introduce new ones, but they're just designs. There's no real enhancement to them. And I really think that Apple needs to sort of pay attention to that and start making some improvements next year. Well, we'll see how they get along. But at the moment, it's just a bit of a silly problem, really. So
yeah, watchOS 11 I feel like is such a win in so many ways, and then you get to the watch faces, and it's a little bit of a disappointment in that sense. You use your Apple Watch, you find your favorite watch face, you use it every day and get used to it, get it just the way you want it, and then there's a software update or there's a hardware upgrade where there's these new enhancements and these cool things that the Apple Watch can do, but your watch face gets left behind, and you have the option of either just using the same old one and not getting the new features, or moving to something new and having to start all over on that process. And you're kind of limited. If you want to use that always on display with the second hand indicator, then you're kind of stuck with one of the new watch faces, which is unfortunate. So yeah, I'd love to see those watch faces updated so that everyone can take advantage of those new features and not be limited. And hope to see that. Hopefully we won't have to wait for watchOS 12 for that. Maybe we could just see a handful of those updated with different point releases as we go, and hopefully see those stay up to date in the future. But, we'll have to wait and see. I will say I'm using the new Flux face. For whatever reason, I decided I wanted to make my new Apple Watch look like the one on the box that it came in, just to kind of see what it was like. The Flux face is absolutely ridiculous. If you've seen screenshots of some of the different ways that the time can be portrayed, where the numbers get bigger and smaller and the lines aren't even, it really is absolutely wild. And my favorite detail of it is on the hour. So, when it's 2:00 with no minutes, the entire watch face is just a gigantic number 2. There's nothing else there. It's really, it's amazing. But I tried it out just to see what it was like, and I've stuck with it so far, and I'm really enjoying it. Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely some decisions going on there with that design. I'm not sure I totally agree with all of it, but it's a fun face, and the ticking seconds going up, filling up the screen, is a nice touch. But yeah, it's nice. I'd like to see them do more. The reflections face is very nice, and I mentioned in my review as well, I'd love to see that sort of effect happening coming to other watch faces, maybe in the future, where as you move your watch around, the reflections face changes to almost like imitate real metal and has some light effects on it, which is great. It looks really nice. And I'd like to see that happen more as well to some other watch faces. But we should, I think we got the same Apple Watches, didn't we? What did you get?
I got the jet black aluminum. I actually went for the 46 millimeter this time. I jumped up to the big screen size to see what it was like. I've always been intrigued by the Apple Watch Ultra, but didn't want the rugged, or like the look of it doesn't work for me, but I've always been interested in the bigger screen. So, but I went with the big one, and it is gigantic, and I'm actually really loving that bigger screen.
Oh, that's great.
Which one did you go with?
I went with the 42, so it's the one I've had. I just stay on the smaller one. I don't have particularly large wrists, and I always feel that the bigger one looks a bit too big on me. I'm also someone who used to, pre-Apple Watch day, I used to wear one of those like small metallic Casio watches. So I like the small kind of watch face, really. So that's what I've stuck with. I really like it. I think the design changes I guess on paper, and when you see them in images, maybe don't seem that much. But the switch to the same material on the back and the way it's slightly slimmer and the jet black finish, making it seem like it's all one big piece of material, are really nice. I think it's worth, I went from the Series 8, and I think if you're on the Series 8, it's absolutely worth an upgrade, really, because you get things like double tap, which came to the Series 9, so that's a good reason to upgrade. But also just the design of it is really nice. I've been really happy with it. And I took it out of the box, and even not comparing it to the previous one, I was immediately just struck by how much I noticed it was thinner. So yeah, I think I'm really happy with it. It looks really nice. It feels lighter. Yeah, very happy. And now I've got double tap, which I love. I think double tap is such a great feature. I really hope they start iterating on it and bringing in maybe obviously you don't want to be tapping too many times, but I wonder if it's possible to have like a single tap, whether that works for something, because I'd like to interact more with my watch just by tapping. It's a really cool way to do it, a really easy way to do it. So yeah, I'd like to see that more, but yeah, very happy.
Yeah, I was really excited to get a watch with double tap as well, and especially after reading your review and all the functionality that's built into it with apps being able to implement it now with custom controls, as well as enhancements to the smart stack this year that I think make it even more of something that I want to use.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't have been able to change watch faces to the Flux one if it hadn't been for double tap. I was using modular before, and I had all that data right there on my wrist. Now I've moved it all down to the smart stack, and if I want to flip through and see my day plan or the weather or my reminders for today, I can just double tap my fingers and get there without even having to use my other hand, which is really nice. After seeing people have it for a year and then finally, I think, seeing that feature fully baked after a year, I think it took a little bit of time for Apple to fully get it implemented in the system and into third-party apps. I think now is a perfect time to be trying out double tap, and especially with the smart stack, I think it's just a really awesome feature and a great way to interact with the watch. So I'm really happy to have that now. Going back to the jet black, I have to say I am obsessed with this color. I think it's the best black finish that Apple's ever made. I didn't have a jet black iPhone 7 back in the day. I ended up going with the space gray for whatever reason instead. I think I was worried about scratches, which is a concern again with this watch, but yeah, the color is incredible. I had decided before the event that I was going to buy an aluminum watch this year after a couple generations of buying stainless steel watches, because I wasn't super happy with like Starlight and Midnight as finishes on the Apple Watch. And I had just kind of accepted the fact that I was going to have a Midnight watch and I was just going to have to deal with it. And then they announced the jet black and I was just ecstatic, and it really does look stunning in person.
Yeah, I was worried it'd be too shiny actually, but it actually is not, and because your screen is already quite shiny, so it fits in perfectly. So yeah, very glad about that. I guess we should mention one last thing about the Apple Watch, which very much related to this podcast, is the slightly updated remote app for controlling your Apple TV. So just to sort of recap what's in my review, is that the remote app is gaining the ability to control the power and the volume, as well as use Siri Hold to Talk on your Apple Watch, which is bringing it more or less in line with the remote app on the iPhone, which is really great to see. I think it's a really nice way to be able to control your Apple TV without having to get your phone out. As with everything on the Apple Watch, it's like the Translate app. I really love the fact that I have the Translate app on my iPhone, but it's so much easier on my Apple Watch because it's right there with me all the time, and it's the same with this remote app. I think the only thing that I would like it to be improved on slightly is I would love the way it triggers or it can auto launch the Smart Stack or the full play pause interface when you're playing audio on your iPhone. I would love it if you could set, because they've both got the ultra wideband chips in the new Apple TV and the Apple Watch. If you're near your Apple TV and you start playing something, that it launches the remote app on your Apple Watch. I think that would be a really nice touch, which isn't possible at the moment, but I'd like to see that happen. And I don't think it'd be too complicated to do, because you can already have a live activity pop up on your iPhone when you start playing something on your HomePod and you're stood near it. So I'm hopeful that will come. But yeah, a nice little update for people who like to use their watch to control their Apple TV.
I'm to the point now, we both have young children who like to get into things. I have had to hide my Apple TV remote way out of the way, nowhere near where I watch TV, because my son he wants it. He wants to pretend to control the TV with it, and he wants to chew on it.
Oh, right.
It's just not something I want to happen to my Apple TV remote. So it is tucked away. And I also very often don't have my phone with me when I'm watching TV as well, because I'm down in the floor with him and don't want to, be worrying about losing my phone or it falling on my pocket or whatever. So yeah, I've been controlling the Apple TV with my watch ever since I upgraded to this watch. And I don't know if it's the enhancements this year or if it's the bigger watch that just makes me more likely to use it as a remote, but it's working great. And the ability to adjust the volume with the digital crown is really nice. And I appreciate that enhancement for sure. So if you're an Apple Watch user and you haven't tried the remote app for your Apple TV in a while, check it out. It's come quite a long way, and I think it's a really great way to control playback on your Apple TV. So that's our impressions of the new hardware that came out last week. We hope everyone who upgraded is enjoying their new devices. If you have thoughts, of course, we'd love to hear them, so be sure to send them in, and we'd love to know what you're thinking about your new phones and watches and AirPods and whatever else it is that you're trying out. Let's talk about some Apple TV news, starting with an update to an app that isn't available on the Apple TV, but would love to see it come one day. That's Apple Music Classical for iPhone and iPad, which is updated to version 2.0 this week, adding detailed booklets for thousands of albums in the collection, as well as a recently added section in the library. Of course, all those details are very valuable for classical music fans wanting to know who's performing in the different versions of the songs that they're listening to. So those booklets I think are going to be great. I'd love to see those booklets in the regular music app as well for regular albums and to see who's performing there and who wrote the songs and things like that. So there's some third-party tools that can do that, but seeing it built into Apple Music Classical makes me hope that it'll come to Apple Music as well, and maybe one day we'll see Apple Music Classical come to the Apple TV for classical music fans who want to listen there. And this is a pretty big change for Apple TV users. It's still kind of in flux right now. We don't totally know how it's all going to land. But in the latest beta versions of Apple's operating systems, the Up Next queue in the TV app has been renamed Continue Watching, and it's been split off from a new section called the Watch List. Now, this is really interesting. I've been reading about it. I personally have not seen this Watch List section come up in my TV app just yet. But from what I've read, what it's doing is the continue watching section is for series or films that you've already started. And so that's where your next episode will be, or if you're picking back up on something that you've started. Whereas the watch list is for things you haven't started yet or upcoming releases. And so I guess the idea is to separate those out and kind of clean it up from, well, this is probably what you want to watch right now, and this is what you're keeping an eye on, which is a very interesting way to split it up. We've talked in the past on this show about some kind of sorting and filtering for the Up Next queue, or even the ability to create multiple Up Next queues and sort of manually separate things out the way you want them. This is the first real step in that direction, and it's very interesting to see. I don't think it's totally settled yet exactly how this is going to work, because again, I'm not seeing it on my devices. I see the continue watching section, but the watch list has not popped up for me, even though I have gone in and added some future releases. So it's in the beta. It's still, being tested. We don't know exactly how it's going to land, but I thought it was an interesting addition and possibly a hint of some kind of splitting up of the next queue coming in the future, which I think would be really exciting. But we will keep an eye on that as it moves through the beta process and let you know as it comes out publicly exactly where that all lands. And we'll see what our Up Next queues or continue watching queues or whatever they're called in the future, what those look like. Speaking of the future, we got some trailers this week for upcoming Apple Originals. Very exciting. We got the first full trailer for Disclaimer coming October 11th, of course, from Alfonso Cuarón. We finally learned what the asterisk in all the marketing means. The end of the trailer told us any resemblance to persons living or dead is not a coincidence. I'm loving the marketing for this show. Really excited to see it. Sigmund and I went in depth on the teaser trailer not too long ago, so we won't go super in depth here. But Jonathan, do you have any thoughts on disclaimer and looking forward to it?
Yeah, it looks intriguing. I can't quite work out what's going on, which I think is a good thing from a trailer. Like, I'm intrigued, but I don't fully understand what the plot is about, which these days is a really good thing, where trailers often just sort of show the whole TV show or the whole film like in the trailer. So I'm definitely gonna be checking it out. I mean, the cast is incredible, so it looks really good. Alfonso Cuarón is, I mean, he rarely misses, so definitely going to be checking this out. Yeah, I'm wondering whether the asterisk is going to be the same meaning on the Thunderbolts poster as well for Marvel, because they've got an asterisk as well.
Yeah, it's the new trend for marketing your film or TV show, I guess. Got to add an asterisk to the end of it and add a little bit of mystery.
And we also got another trailer this week in the form of Blitz. In World War II London, 9-year-old George is evacuated to the countryside by his mother, Rita, to escape the bombings. Defiant and determined to return to his family, George embarks on a journey back home as Rita searches for him.
My mom sent me away.
She did it to keep you safe.
Your son did not arrive at his destination.
You're responsible for his safety. Why can't you tell me? Where's my boy?
This is for all the parents whose children have been evacuated, and for my boy, George.
Directed by Steve McQueen, starring Saoirse Ronan, Elliot Heffernan, Harris Dickinson, Erin Kellyman, Stephen Graham, Paul Weller, and Kathy Burke amongst its ensemble, with cinematography from Yorick Lasso and music from Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, this looks absolutely stunning. You know, we've heard so much about this film. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty big release very, very soon. But this is a story I'm not super familiar with. It's, of course, based on the Blitz of London during World War II, and just kind of reflecting the experiences of people during that time. And this trailer, I found it very powerful. Seeing this happen through the eyes of a young boy, I think the scene that struck me the most, of course, there's just so much going on in this trailer because it's just such a chaotic time in these people's lives. But when George is asked to make a wish, and then he thinks back to the time before the war when he was playing in the street with his friends, that got me. And I feel like just seeing this experience of him, and of course his mother looking for him, I think this is going to be really powerful and impactful, and I'm really, really excited for this one. What do you think of the trailer?
Yeah, it looks great. I mean, Steve McQueen is an incredible director, really powerful stories that he tells, and I think this is a guaranteed hit, really. This is going to be a really good film. I'll be shocked if it's not, because he's a really consistently great filmmaker, and I think it's probably worth saying for people not familiar, but George being evacuated to the countryside was common practice back in World War II. Kids in the cities, particularly in London, because of the risks of being bombed, were all sent to the countryside to sort of foster families or various groups and to get them out of danger. So this is obviously where this story starts. I think, again, it's one of those situations where I am very disappointed it's not getting a wider release, because it definitely deserves to have that have this story playing out on the big screen. It will have a limited release, of course, so I will definitely be trying to check that out at the cinema. And I believe Sigmund is maybe even seeing this at the London Film Festival, so he'll be able to report back on that. Interested to see Paul Weller. I can't remember if he's done any acting before. I maybe have a feeling that maybe he was in Quadrophenia, but I'm maybe making that up. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see Mr. Paul Weller of Weller, ooh, tell me more fame. That's why I always remember him. Right?
Well, you can see Paul Weller and the rest of the cast of Blitz in select theaters November 1st and streaming on Apple TV Plus everywhere on November 22nd. Moving into Apple Original News, usually we start with release news, but we're actually going to start with non-release news this week, because Page 6 reports that Oprah Winfrey has bought back the rights to a 2-part documentary on her life that was commissioned by Apple TV Plus in 2021. It's unclear the reasoning behind this decision, but we do know for certain that the film will not be released. It's not something that we're going to be seeing. Of course, Oprah had a deal with Apple when Apple TV Plus launched. She was doing her book club and working with them on various other projects, and that deal has since expired. They're not working together anymore, so this was kind of, I guess, the last remnant of that maybe, and it's not something that we're going to be seeing on Apple TV Plus.
And in development news now, Apple has landed feature film Matchbox from Skydance and Mattel Films, starring John Cena and directed by Sam Hargrove. The film is based on a screenplay by David Cockershall and Jonathan Tropper, and is inspired by Mattel's 70-year-old die-cast toy line, which I don't quite know what to make of this, I'll be honest. This is an interesting film for Apple to acquire, actually. I mean, they've acquired IP before, obviously, with the Monsterverse with Monarch. So they have got IP going on, and they did try to start a franchise, I think, with Argyle. We'll see if that goes anywhere. But this is a very much an IP-focused film. Not quite sure what to make of it. I do very much like John Cena. I think he's a very funny guy, so that encourages me. But yeah, it remains to be seen whether this film will pan out to be a good film.
Yeah, the adaptations of childhood toys, they've gone in all kinds of different directions, right? It could be a Barbie, or it could be a battleship.
Yes,
so we'll just have to see how it turns out and what direction they go. But very interested to see what happens with that one. Apple has also secured the rights to Off Season, a film written by Andrew Sadowski and starring Vanessa Kirby. Plot details are under wraps, but the movie is described as a femme fatale thriller set in a luxury resort on Mexico's Mayan Riviera. Vanessa Kirby coming back to Apple TV Plus, kind of a mysterious film that she's doing, but it'd be good to see her come back.
Yeah, indeed. Meanwhile, Apple is reportedly in heated competition with other streamers for the rights to a documentary centered on the highly anticipated return of Oasis as the Gallagher brothers prepare to go out on tour next year for the first time since 2009. This is one for our very own Federico for sure. I'm sure he's will be looking forward to this potential documentary. I know he's got tickets to go see them. I tried and I missed out after a third time of trying, so I'm a bit annoyed. Maybe some miracle will happen. I'll manage to find some nearer the time. But yeah, this will be a good one for sure, especially if it turns out to be a fiery backstage atmosphere, as they have recently made up from some very fiery arguments in the past.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of directions that documentary could go. Whoever's filming it's just kind of along for the ride, and
yes,
it's going to have a great story either way. So hopefully that comes to Apple TV Plus. I think it'd be a great fit, but we'll have to wait and see. In casting news, SNL fans will be excited because alums A.D. Bryant, Kyle Mooney, and Beck Bennett are going to reunite for Platonic Season 2, where each of them have been cast in recurring roles. Cool to see them added. I'm happy to see Platonic coming back. I'm intrigued to see where they're going to go with the season, because it didn't feel like they necessarily ended in a place where they were planning to continue it. But with cast additions like this, and of course Rose Byrne and Seth Rogen at the helm, I think it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, for sure. Those SNL fans, you can count me amongst them. I love these three actors. Cal Mooney has a film coming out soon, or in December, I believe, called Y2K, which I'm looking forward to, which he's written and directed. A.D. Bryant's great, and so is Beck Bennett. Yeah, but like you say, Platonic, I really loved Platonic. I'm not so sure it needed a second season, but I'm glad it is having one, because it's just one of those shows where you got two very funny people just riffing a lot of the time, and it was so funny. I really loved this show, so I'm glad it's coming back. However it's going to work. And we also have some news regarding Michelle Pfeiffer, who is collaborating on her first project with her longtime husband, David E. Kelly, who a lot of people will be familiar with his work, such as Ally McBeal, The Practice, Big Little Lies, and most recently, Presumed Innocent on Apple TV+. Michelle Pfeiffer is joining the cast of the upcoming Apple original series, Margot's Got Money Trouble, which also stars previously announced leads Elle Fanning and Nicole Kidman. again joining DVD Kelly for another series. The series follows a young single mother named Margot who decides to borrow some of her dad's techniques from the world of professional wrestling and make money on OnlyFans, which sounds utterly bizarre, and I am definitely there for it.
And in news that has me very excited, and I hope to hear confirmation from Apple on this soon, the Cinemaholic is reporting that The Family Plan 2 is set to be filmed in London and Paris starting in December, with Mark Wahlberg and Michelle Monaghan on board to return alongside director Simon Selin-Jones and writer David Coggeshall. I know The Family Plan, not the most highbrow film in Apple's repertoire, but it seems to have connected with people enough to merit a sequel, and I think this is the first Apple original film that we're hearing a sequel actually going into production on. We've heard that there's going to be a sequel for Wolf's. Apple has confirmed that, so that might be the first confirmed sequel, but this is the first one I think we're actually going to see on the service, which is cool. And a little bit of a franchise going on with The Family Plan here.
Yeah, indeed. Quick bit of awards news. Drops of God received a Best Drama Series nomination in the International Emmy Awards. I've not seen this show. Did you watch it, Devon? It's on my list, my ever long list, ever expanding. I hear good things. Did you watch it?
I did, and I didn't really go in with super high expectations. It was an international pickup from Apple based on, I believe, a manga series, so I wasn't sure it was going to be quite for me, but yeah, this turned out to be a really great series. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's got a mix of French and Japanese. It's filmed in all these beautiful places, and it's centered around, this competition between these two people who start off as fierce rivals, but you kind of get to see their relationship develop in these interesting ways. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm really happy to see it getting some award recognition. I'm also happy that it's going to be coming back to Apple TV Plus, so you have a future to look forward to after season 1, after you do check that one out. Speaking of series that run multiple seasons, there's one particular series on Apple TV Plus that doesn't seem to show any signs of slowing down. It's on its 4th season right now, with a 5th one already on the way. Of course, I'm talking about Slow Horses. I think the Apple original that has the most seasons so far of any series that Apple has ordered, which is very cool to see, for very good reason, I think. You have been a huge fan of Slow Horses from the beginning. I think you wrote our review of Slow Horses back at Screen Times way back when season 1 came out. Am I right?
I did, yeah, and I interviewed James Hawes, the director of the first season, for this very podcast. So listeners, if they didn't hear that, they can cycle back in the feed and find that. It was a very interesting one. He's a very interesting guy. I love this show. This is my favorite show on TV at the moment. I'm so glad they keep commissioning more seasons. Gary Oldman seems to love being in it, so I think there's much convincing for him to do it. I know that they are currently starting to film on season 6 at the moment, just coming out of writing. So, I mean, we've still got season 5 to watch yet, and the rest of season 4. I have seen season 4, but obviously people listening won't have. So still lots more to go, which feels great to not have to sort of be, looking forward to looking at the end and, feeling sad about it. I feel like it's going to keep going for a bit, which is great. Yeah.
So we're not going to spoil anything, but I thought having you on right a little bit past the midpoint of the season, how are you enjoying season 4, at least what we've seen of it so far?
Yeah, so I before recording, I went back to the episodes and just to check where we were, so I wasn't spoiling anything. So yeah, I like this season. I think after watching it, I think it's my favorite season so far. Without spoiling anything, the last episode is just an absolute nail biter, and I think that this season it finishes off on a trend for this season, which is gradually sort of increasing the tension as we're going through this season in a way that was really impressive. I like that we're seeing a bit more of the character backstories for some of the main people, particularly River Cartwright, and even a bit of Jackson Lamb as well. We're seeing, and we'll see a little bit more of him and some of the people that he knows. And I'm just really liking the evolution of the series. I think that the writing is just so incredible, and I'm not overly bothered by awards shows. I do like them in a certain respect, but I was absolutely overjoyed, and you guys had to see this on our text group, but when Slow Horses won Best Writing at the Emmys, I was so happy because I think that the writing on this show is so incredibly good. It's so tight and so lean and so funny, and there's not a single moment in it where you think, oh, we didn't really need to see that scene. And then conversely, you don't think, oh, I would like to see more of that thing. It's always just the right amount. There's always good character development. There's so many thrills in there. There's great twists. It really has everything. And I think a lot of shows, start at the writing. I think all shows do, really. They start with the writing. And this show has such incredible writing that it can only go up from there, and with the cast and the directing and so forth, it's just a really great show. And it's the show that I say to everyone when they asking about Apple TV Plus shows to watch is, have you watched Slow Horses? I never mind Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso's great. Have you watched Slow Horses? So I think that this season's a really good progression. Rather than doing another thriller, they're starting to dive into the characters more, which I'm really liking. How about you?
I'm watching this season week to week, so I haven't seen the ending yet. I've only seen the first 3, but I'm really enjoying it so far. And I think my favorite part is getting Standish back in the mix. She's a character that I thoroughly enjoy, and seeing her in a little bit of a different situation where she's kind of from the outside, but of course she's never going to fully break away from the Slow Horses, right? So that's really interesting for me. I'm enjoying that a lot. And yeah, I think this show continues to deliver year after year. And I'm happy that Apple are continuing to invest in it. And it's one of those shows, like you said, that if you're trying to get somebody to try out Apple TV Plus, or if you're recommending shows to get started, this is a great introduction, I think, to the service, kind of what you can expect. And it's only 6 episodes per season, right? So it's the quick watch too, which I think helps a lot in terms of keeping people's attention. But like you said, giving you just enough without wasting time and making you feel like you're watching more than you need to. So it's always very tight and well told.
Yeah, 45 minutes an episode as well, generally, which honestly, like just looking at that stat, 45 minutes, 6 episodes, and then thinking about what happens in each season, honestly, it's quite mind-blowing how they managed to do it, but it's such a great show. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and you talked about the writing, which is incredible, but I think it all starts, of course, with the novels that they're adapting from Mick Herron, who offers just this incredible plethora of source material, not only for Slow Horses, but now also for other Apple original series as well, which is great to see. Being such a fan of Slow Horses, has it inspired you to check out Mick Herron's work?
So I haven't actually checked out as well. I just recently bought one of the novellas, which go in between, I think, season 3 and 4, which I'm definitely going to try. I was thinking about starting his Zoe Bohem series, which starts with Down Cemetery Road, but that was recently announced as also being adapted by Apple TV Plus. And I don't tend to like reading something and watching something, and I'm not actually a big reader anyway, so it has to be something really special. So I'm not going to do that now, but I think if I was a big reader, I think I definitely would have done, and I know lots of people on the Mac Stories Discord have checked out his work after seeing the show and are really impressed by it. But yeah, there's 13. Oh no, I think there's like 10 full novels, I think, of Slow Horses. So I'm really hoping we get 10 seasons. But yeah, great stuff.
So far, so good. I love checking out the Club Mac Stories Plus Discord and seeing the comparisons between the books and the seasons after the fact and seeing how they've been adapted. I think that's cool. One thing I appreciate is that the adaptations of each season are direct to a book, unlike something like Silo, which the first season kind of stops midway through the first book. So if you're wanting to read along, you have to be careful. I appreciate that it's very much a one-to-one thing. And like you said, we're at season 6 being filmed now. So if they can order 4 more and finish out the series, I think that would be absolutely incredible. And I'm confident that they will and will continue to enjoy it. Now, of course, you can check out the first 3 seasons of Slow Horses, as well as the first 4 episodes of its current 4th season on Apple TV Plus now, in anticipation of the season's last 2 episodes coming over the next couple of Wednesdays, and, of course, seasons 5 and 6 down the road, so lots and lots of Slow Horses to enjoy.
Yeah, and if you're not watching Slow Horses, people listening, what are you doing with your life? Come on, get this show watched, please.
You heard it here. That brings us nicely to this week's Apple TV releases. On Wednesday, of course, we did see that new episode of Slow Horses, as well as a new episode of Bad Monkey, and the 2-episode premiere of our highlight this week, Midnight Family, as well as the finale of Women in Blue. Now, this Friday sees the streaming premiere of Apple original film Wolves, highly anticipated. And so if everyone wants to check that out, Sigmund and I will be discussing that in depth next week, sharing our thoughts on Wolves. Friday also sees new episodes of Pachinko and La Maison. Saturday and Sunday, MLS Season Pass continues. And remember, if you're an Apple TV Plus subscriber, you can check out those games for free. They're included with your subscription for the rest of the season. In terms of extras this week, we've got an exclusive sneak peek at Bad Sisters Season 2 over at Vanity Fair. Lots of pictures and little tidbits getting ready for Season 2 of a show that I really can't wait to come back.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I'm checking that out as soon as we finish recording here.
I'll have to send you that link, and of course it'll also be in the show notes. There's a new guide in Apple Maps called Take a Journey Around Japan with Sunny. Always cool to see these little tie-ins between Apple Original Series and Apple's other services. Now, Jonathan, you and I were talking before the show. You've not yet seen Sunny, but you're planning to see it soon, right?
I am, yeah. It's next on my list actually to watch. I think I was told that potentially there's a few sort of slightly unnerving scenes or maybe slightly scary scenes. So I think my wife is going to avoid it, which means I'll probably end up watching it quicker because I'll watch it on my own time. She avoids those sort of shows. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hear really good things. I know John Voorhees over at Max Stories. He's a big fan. I think one of his favourite shows this year. So I'm looking forward to starting that. I assume that you've been watching it?
Oh, yes. I really enjoyed it. I think you're in for a treat with Sunny. And just got my fingers crossed waiting around for a Season 2 renewal there. And hopefully we'll be talking about that soon. Finally, in extras for this week, Apple Fitness Plus has an artist spotlight on Charlie XCX. So if you want to have a very brat workout, you've got that opportunity now with the artist spotlight. And I instantly regret that joke after saying it, but here we are.
You're down with the cool kids, Devon. You know all the phrases. Come on.
I've got a young niece and nephew who are in high school who correct me on some of these phrases every once in a while, so I appreciate that service they provide.
Yeah, I had to rely on Casey Newton on Hard Fork to explain this. I kept seeing it, and I had no idea what it was about, and then he had a handy explainer as to what it meant, and now I do know what it means. So I feel very up with the kids.
So that's our releases and extras this week. Of course, we like to cap off every show with our up next picks. Things from outside the world of Apple TV Plus that you can check out on your Apple TV. Jonathan, why don't you kick us off with your pick?
Yes, my pick came out a little earlier this year on Netflix, and it is the series Ripley, which we just finished watching a few days ago, and it is an exceptionally made TV show. It's based around this character called Tom Ripley, adapted from the books by Patricia Highsmith. And Tom Ripley is kind of a small-time con man, fraudster, like forging checks and so forth. And he's hired by some wealthy guy called Herbert Greenleaf to go over to Italy and try and persuade his son Dickie to come back to New York. It's set in 1961, and when Dickie arrives, he's very much seduced by the sort of the lavish lifestyle that Dickie and his girlfriend are living in, and then gradually starts trying to want to take over his life. And we shall leave it at that. But it is an incredible plot. It's already been made into a film called The Talented Mr. Ripley, previously with Jude Law and Matt Damon. It is I believe it's slightly different than the film, but it's more sort of towards the book. It stars Andrew Scott as Tom Ripley, Dakota Fanning as Marge Sherwood, and Johnny Flynn as Dickie Greenleaf. Andrew Scott is an incredible actor. I will watch anything that he's in. And it recently picked up a bunch of awards for Outstanding Directing, Emmy Award for Limited Series. It was picked up the award for visual effects in a single episode. It won for sound editing, and it won for cinematography by Robert Elswit. Now, I think this is the biggest draw of this show, is that it is exceptionally photographed, beautifully shot in black and white. So you get many sort of landscape scenes around the Italian countryside and in Rome itself. And the way the frames are all made up, it's just gorgeous to look at. And there's no surprise that it won the Emmy Awards for that. Robert Elswit is a cinematographer who's worked on many Paul Thomas Anderson films, including Inherent Vice and There Will Be Blood and so forth. And he did Good Night and Good Luck. He's done The Night Of, which was a TV series on HBO a few years back, which was also written by Steven Zalian, who is the writer-director of this show. It's just full of quality. It looks beautiful. The plot is so intriguing and gripping and really, really well acted. I kind of want to talk lots about the show, but I don't want to spoil the twists. But if you look up, if you're unsure about this show, just watch the trailer and you'll see how beautifully shot it is, and it's worth it just for that. But that's my recommendation for this week.
Yeah, great pick. This is one that I've heard about but missed in terms of my own watching. I haven't spent a lot of time in Netflix. I just kind of been paying the subscription and letting it sit there, unfortunately. So I need to get this one on my list and get started watching it. In terms of TV app highlights this week, I wanted to share with you that if you've been wanting to watch Inside Out 2 and been waiting on it to come to Disney+, it is now available to stream there. I personally have heard so many good things about this film, but I haven't had a chance to watch it, so I'll be pulling it up in Disney+ as soon as possible. And this is one I can also watch with my son as well, so we'll let him join in on the fun too.
I mean, Devon, prepare yourself. As a relatively new parent with a 3-year-old who loved the first one, Inside Out 2 hits on another level. As a parent, It is. I mean, it's a wonderful film. I think everyone will love. But as a parent, there's something about it. I was a wreck at least 2 times, I think, maybe 3 times during the film. It's an incredible film. You will definitely need to have some tissues nearby, I think, for sure.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. I will keep that in mind. My up next pick actually kind of sticks along that same theme this week. It's a throwback to not a remotely new series. It's actually a series that came out in the 1980s and 90s, and that is Full House. In particular, the episode from season 3 called Aftershocks. Now, I've been doing a Full House rewatch alongside the rewatch podcast How Rude Tanneritos, hosted by Jodie Sweetin and Andrea Barber, stars of the show. And they're in season 3 now, and we just got to this episode that I found really touching. It's the Tanners dealing with the aftermath of the San Francisco earthquake back when the show was running. This episode was actually filmed just a few months after a devastating earthquake hit San Francisco. And you can see as the episode's playing out that these writers and creators and actors are all really dealing with what the community was facing during this time and just the uncertainty and the struggles that people were facing. And it's all channeled through the middle daughter, Stephanie, and her reaction to the earthquake and becoming very, very clingy to her father in the wake of what happened. And it opens up a conversation that astounded me to have been taking place this far back around children's mental health and a parent contending with the fact that they don't have the skills needed to help their child with the situation they're in and seeking out professional help in the form of a therapist. And it was really touching to me to see that portrayed on screen, and something that a conversation that still needs to be had today around taking care of your mental health, keeping an eye on your loved ones, and helping them find the help that they need when that time comes, as it does for many of us. And in the follow-up to that episode on the podcast, Andrea and Jody also did an interview with the show's creator, Jeff Franklin, about the inspiration for the episode, the conversations that were happening around it, and some of his own personal experiences that influenced this episode, and really just the message that they were trying to put out in the world in the wake of this catastrophic event that had taken place. So really impactful episode of a show that aired a long time ago, but I think is still very much relevant today and is continuing to bring about these conversations that are so important around mental health. So that's my shout out for this week.
Interesting one. Where can people check out the Full House if they want to rewatch it?
So Full House is available on Disney Plus and Hulu in the United States. And of course, we'll link to that episode in the show notes. And then the interview is, just wherever you get your podcast. Check out How Rude Tanneritos. The interview with Jeff Franklin is very, very good.
Cool.
That's it from us this week. Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure to have you.
It's been a pleasure to be here, as always.
Where can people connect with you online?
You can generally find me on Mastodon. I am Jonathan Reed at techhub.social. And you can, of course, find my writing over at macstories.net.
And also catch you in the Mac Stories Discord, where you're the community manager. Lots of great conversations happening over there. And
of course,
one of my favorite places to hang out online for sure.
Yep, one of the friendliest places on the web, in my opinion. Everyone's very nice and lots of great conversations.
Most definitely. You can always contact the show, myself, or Sigmund on social media via the links in the show notes. You can email the show or send us an iMessage to magic@macstories.net. We always love to hear your feedback on the podcast, on the shows and films that we're discussing, on the tech and the hardware and software as well. We just love to hear from you and hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with Wolf's Where's Wanda and a recap of Women in Blue. So until then, stay safe, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade, and have a great week.